Welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. Getting notes from listeners still about their experience voting today. I got a note from CJ who reminds me we met in Cooperstown back in 2017 when Tim Raines was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Thank you, CJ, for the reminder. And CJ writes this: they voted in the new riding, Les Pays d'en-Haut, which is a new riding. I think it's near Saint Adèle, right? Let me go find this out. It's Saint Adèle, Saint-Sauveur. That's where that new riding is in the redistricting that happened for this election. 5 more seats, by the way, this time around. And CJ writes that it took 45 minutes. Our whole community was there, but only one voting booth at the Wentworth Community Center. It was madness. And CJ adds, let's go Expo. CJ, keep listening, by the way, because in about half an hour's time, I'm going to tell you about this weekend. Got to see Felipe Alou once again. He was honored over the weekend at Expos Fest. So keep it locked. Good to hear from an Expos fan, especially on a day like today. And I have a note here from DDO saying no line whatsoever in DDO. That from Randy, okay? It is decision day in this country after a whirlwind 36-day campaign, the shortest allowed by law. Of course, the latest Nanos poll from yesterday shows less than 3 points separating Mark Carney's Liberals and Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. This campaign began under the dark cloud of Donald Trump's threats, but in recent weeks, affordability, immigration, public safety have taken more of the stage. Let's talk a little bit more about this with Laura Stone from the Globe and Mail. Laura, welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, of course, you're in Ontario, and your normal beat is what happens at Queen's Park. But I think Ontario, this is the make or break province in this election. So give us the view from Ontario.
That's right. Ontario is, and particularly the greater Toronto area, Toronto, the city, and the suburban areas surrounding it are really key to whoever forms the next government. And we've seen a battle, obviously, between the Liberals and the Conservatives in these types of ridings in the prior elections. The Liberals kind of own the suburbs right now, and the Conservatives have worked really hard to try to flip them. I think this has been extraordinary in the sense of kind of the interventions that we've seen from Premier Doug Ford and his top advisor, Corey Teneycke, who was the campaign manager in Ford's 3 majority victories. We saw criticism early on in the campaign from Mr. Teneycke about the Conservative campaign, and particularly he viewed the lack of focus on Trump and the tariffs from the get-go as a major misstep for Mr. Poilievre, and maybe he's tried to kind of make that up throughout the campaign, but I think it was extraordinary in the sense of how we've seen kind of the provincial side of the Conservative movement, the progressive Conservative movement, very heavily criticized Mr. Poilievre and his team. And we saw Mr. Teneycke call it campaign malpractice, the party blowing a 25-point lead heading into the election campaign. And Doug Ford made some comments to Politico that were published yesterday saying, that Mr. Poilievre hasn't reached out to anyone, mayors, provincial premiers. We've heard some tension between him and Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston. So I think kind of the fracture in the Conservative movement is also a side story of this campaign. But look, anything can happen. It's a very tight race. You can see in the polls in Ontario, and the rise and fall, particularly of the NDP in some of these areas too, could make a big difference. So whoever gets Ontario is likely going to be forming the next government, and so that will be certainly the ridings to watch will be in this province.
Donald Trump, of course, has interjected himself into the Canadian campaign once again this morning, almost sounding like he's on the ballot, like he's running. And of course, we can go back and forth. When he does that, who's he trying to support? Because a lot of people would say it only helps Mark Carney. But I want to ask you, in Ontario, for the voter, right? I hear, okay, it's Trump is the issue, tariffs are the issue. And then I also hear it's public safety, it's the crime, it's immigration, it's the other things. Yeah. What do you think? Where do you think the truth actually is there?
You know what? I think it's all of the above. I think to me, the ballot question is trust and trust in the leader, and that is whether that's the person who can handle Donald Trump and stand up for Canada, or whether it's trust in the person to bring down housing prices and make life more affordable and criminal justice policies that make sense to people. And it depends, on which side of the political spectrum you are. You believe in which party is best placed to do that. But I don't think that there's an either or proposition here. I don't think, for some people it might be Donald Trump is the prime reason, or they believe perhaps Mr. Carney is the best person who can handle negotiations with Mr. Trump because of his past experience in the private sector. But there's others who would feel, look, we just had 10 years of Liberal government. Life has gotten more expensive. We feel like we can't get ahead, and we cannot support the Liberals again. So I think it's everything, right? I don't think you can really pinpoint one particular reason about why people will vote. And if the campaign had kept going for a couple more weeks, would the polls have shifted further in the Conservatives' favor? I'm not sure. I think the shorter campaign has benefited the Liberals, but it's so cliche to say, but we'll have to see what happens in the results, and then we'll kind of make our determination as to what pushed people over the edge to vote for which party.
With Laura Stone from the Globe and Mail, and of course, Laura, you referenced the stuff out of the Doug Ford camp and some others in the conservative land. But can I ask you if you've heard anything? And do I know they've been tight-lipped, and locally here they haven't allowed their candidates to talk and that kind of stuff. What do you hear from the Conservatives that maybe can't speak on the record? Those who are in the Poilievre campaign, what are they saying about?
I think they're hopeful that their message of change, that this being a change election, will benefit them in the end. I mean, we saw massive early voter turnout, right? And I mean, I guess you could argue if you were a Liberal or a Conservative that would benefit you, right? Because the Liberals are saying, well, we're a change from Trudeau. The past Trudeau government. So it's not necessarily to benefit the opposition. But I think, there's some hope within Conservative camps that there might be kind of a soft Conservative vote, or a vote that perhaps has been missed by the polls, missed by the mainstream media. It was quite extraordinary in covering the Conservative campaign, just how they're trying to shift the narrative away from mainstream publications and networks such as myself into kind of more YouTube bloggers, people who are reaching their own supporters through X and other accounts, and how they're trying to kind of reach the people that may not get their news coverage from mainstream sources anymore. So I think, there's a hope that those people have not been captured by the polls, in which we're seeing a projection potentially of a majority Liberal government. I think also, vote efficiency is going to be huge in this campaign. The polls, a national poll tells one story, but there's, where is that vote concentrated? Where are the tight races? So I think there's still, I would say still hope within the Conservative Party that they can at least, be very competitive in this campaign.
Laura, a quick word to wrap up on the NDP. Some would argue that the Conservatives have done just fine. It's just been the NDP collapse. That's the story. What about how do you think the NDP will do at the end of the day here, especially in Ontario?
I think the NDP is kind of the story to watch. I mean, we could be watching the death of the NDP as we know it, right? Or certainly the death of the NDP under leader Jagmeet Singh. They've shifted their message in the later half of the campaign, not promoting themselves as a government in waiting anymore, but promoting themselves as kind of the conscience of the government, and those who could hold a Liberal government to account. They've determined for themselves that they believe the Liberals will win, and they want to be that party who pushes them further to the progressive, to the left side of the spectrum politically, and that's been their message. So whether that's resonated, we'll see. So I'd say the NDP and certainly the Bloc in Quebec are going to be almost a determining factor for which party it forms the government at the end of today.
Laura, great work at the Globe and Mail. One of the reasons I subscribe, I want to thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Laura Stone from the Globe and Mail. On the text line, by the way, Elias, as Tamara writes this, just voted in the Outremont riding at the Université de Montréal building on Jean-Briand. Nice and easy, took 2 minutes, and it confirmed my voting decision, seeing all the inciting graffiti in the area. That again from Tamara. And Alex writes, just voted in Griffintown at ETS. No lines, in and out in under a minute. Ooh, love to hear that. Keep those comments coming about how it goes for you voting today. Now, when we return, the wonderful Brendan Kelly is going to join us. He's always just good radio from the Montreal Gazette. We're going to take a look at Canada's film and TV industry and how it may be under attack right now. That's next.